Welcome to the 5:30 p.m. August 22nd, 2023 presentations City Council meeting. We do have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? In the pledge to the flag. City Clerk, would you please read the rules to speak?
Yes, sir. This is a city council meeting to hear special recognitions and presentations. Council will not take formal action on the agenda items. All individuals wishing to speak may do so under petitions and requests. No sign-up card is required. Citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak. All sign-up cards and exhibits being submitted to City Council should be placed in the box on the table.
Thank you very much, City Manager.
And we're on agenda item number 4A, which is the Employee of the Month for August 2023. And we'd like to recognize Detective Brandon Williams of the Titusville Police Department as that Employee of the Month for August 2023. So, Chief.
You want to do it or me?
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, thank you very much for the opportunity. Detective Williams came to us in 2021, but he came to us from an agency in Texas with a lot of experience, and so he truly hit the ground running. Did a lot of research on Florida agencies, and even in spite of Commander Demon, he still decided to come here, so we are truly blessed. But this particular time, there's so many things that Brandon and his fellow teammates in our detective division can be recognized for, but this is the epitome of who Detective Williams is. There was a case of a theft of a business, and this particular business is tucked away in an area where, unfortunately, in light of what it does get hit from time to time. It's just not an easy place to sneak up on as a police officer doing patrols, and you can see us coming a mile away. So it's just one of the things that the owner has just kind of come to understand. So he reported a theft, and it went to Brandon, and quite frankly, Brandon was just going to look through to see if any of the pawn shops came up with anything that matched and then kind of pass it on. But instead, he went ahead and pulled there was a video. It's actually a city-owned video on, it's not the Riverside, but on the Buffalo Road side. And that video, unfortunately, is not very good quality. So he was able to find pieces of that video that then he went to other means such as Ring and other surveillance cameras throughout the city and was able to piece together a possible suspect vehicle on that. With that developed into a suspect, and he surveilled the place of employment. And this is one of the funniest things. When he pulled up the place of employment, which is outside of the city of Titusville, on Google Earth, the suspect's vehicle is in the picture on Google Earth. Wow. So technology is just an amazing thing. And so this case that really probably in most cases would never get solved, Brandon figured out a way, but that's not it. The case was so good with the evidence that, I mean, unfortunately or fortunately for us, this person's attorney actually got all the property back. So the suspect's attorney brokered, let's just give all the items back. So the victim in this case was whole, but it even goes further. Brandon realized that this person had a family, kids, and instead of just arresting him at that point, he figured out the timing where it would be the best for everybody involved. So we got case closure, the victim got the property back, and with dignity, Detective Williams handled the arrest so that not to take away from the children and the family, where we could still get a positive resolve for everybody. That is the epitome of Detective Williams, and he is very deserving of this award.
Thank you.
Bring that Texas accent back out, right?
Let's get over here with it. Oh, never mind, you're here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Just another education on why you guys are my heroes. I mean, seriously, you take care of everybody, you think of the whole picture, the parents, the kids. And that's not something everybody thinks about. So thank you so much. Yes, sir. Thank you.
And on to item 4B, which is our wastewater and water financial forecast update. The city's rate consultant from Titusville will provide an update on water and wastewater financial forecast. Sir.
Thank you, guys. Every one of you, thank you.
All right, we have Trevor and Henry here from Rate Tillis to go over our rate sufficiency review for water and sewer rates. Just to give you a little background, that you'll see in the capital funding, we're proposing close to 116 million in total capital over the 5-year span that's funded by these rates and debt issuance and other means of getting there. Just to give you an idea of what we're proposing to do on the high level. The Indian River Force Main's already underway. That's a $9 million project. We also want to replace the Riverside Force Main, which is another roughly $8 million. We have a number of enhancements to the water treatment facility, including rehabbing the filters and adding the enhanced water project that will combine for another roughly $10 million. All underway now and in process of design or getting ready to move to construction. We're also looking to replace the master pump station on Knox McCrae, which was the old sewer plant of the city, to upgrade it. And we have other various improvements at Blue Heron and Osprey that will improve the efficiency of the plants and extend their lifespans and keep them up and going and compliant. So I just want to give you a little high-level look at what we have. It is a large number, and you'll see by the rate review that we are planning on how to get these funded and continue the process of moving these projects forward. And I'll turn it over to Trevor.
Appreciate it. Once again, my name's Trevor McCarthy, and I'm with Titusville Financial Consultants. I'm here with Henry Thomas. Henry, in some capacity, has been working with the city for about 20 years, so and he's from the city of Titusville, so quite a long history. So, glad to be a part of the project team. So, the city's been doing these rate reviews annually every year. So what we've done, appreciate it. So we've updated the financial forecast this year for fiscal years 2023 through 2028. This includes an evaluation of customers, sales, and revenues, operating and maintenance expenses. We've included the adopted fiscal year 2023 budget and proposed 24 budget. We're looking at funding for ongoing capital repairs, rehabilitations, and replacements, as well as system upgrades and expansion projects. So ultimately, we want to review the adequacy of existing water and wastewater rates over the study period. So when we use the term revenue requirements to describe the total expenditures that are needed to be funded from rates. These expenditures include O&M expenses, renewal and replacements funded from pay-as-you-go capital, other capital improvements, debt service requirements. The utility does have both senior lien and junior lien bonds through the Florida State Revolving Fund outstanding. And, we're looking at expenditures, and we're also looking at maintaining a prudent financial picture and, keeping in mind operating reserves. We want to maintain 90 to 120 days of cash on hand to have adequate reserves for working capital and to fund unforeseen expenditures. We want to maintain compliance with lender agreements, again, those senior lien bonds, as well as the SRF loans outstanding. And we're taking sort of a balanced and sustainable approach as we describe it here. We want to be able to phase in the rates as necessary, avoid rate shock, not have to raise rates really high in one year. And, y'all have been raising rates I think have been on a 3% kind of trajectory for several years now. And, we see with communities that kind of continue that small rate increases over time to keep pace with inflation, it helps them avoid those larger rate increases that sometimes, if you're not keeping up with it, can happen. So some observations. Customer growth in fiscal year 2022 was in line with last year's growth assumptions. It does seem to be trending downward slightly, but not significantly. The forecast assumes an average growth of approximately 105 units per year, which is similar to last year's growth assumptions and roughly the 5-year average. Operating expenses, we've anticipated those will continue to increase over the forecast period. General inflation is projected at about 2.4% annually based on the Congressional Budget Office. We're seeing rising costs for repair and maintenance, chemicals, fuels, and really just all overall expenditures, whether it's here in Titusville or around the state and really country. We're seeing a lot of inflation. It is trending downward, so that's a good sign. We're using escalation factors ranging from 3 to 5% per year. Overall, O&M we've projected to increase 5% per year, fiscal year 23 through 28. We've got increased labor costs that are included in the 24 budget, including a 4.5% cost of living adjustment, and we've assumed 3% cost of living adjustments thereafter. And we do have 5 additional full-time employees requests through fiscal year 2028, and that's for 25 and beyond. So the fiscal year 2024 CIP plus prior appropriations is approximately $116 million. That'll be funded through a combination of rates, connection or impact fees collected from new growth, grants, and as well as additional debt. About 60% of the capital plan is planned to be financed with debt. We've assumed essentially SRF loans for all these future debt assumptions. Debt service associated with the new debt is assumed to begin in fiscal year 2024. The cities has a couple SRF loans in progress, so those are the ones coming on a little bit sooner. And then we've got some additional loans coming on later in the forecast that maybe have not been applied for yet, but just trying to balance that use of debt versus pay-go. That kind of balance helps to keep rates a little bit lower, and so we're not chasing years where we have high capital cost and accumulating too much cash when those capital spending declines a little bit. The 2020 refunding revenue bond is paid off in 2025, so that annual payment is $3.6 million. So that gives the utility some room to take on this additional debt without having to raise rates. So that loan being paid off is definitely a plus. And the forecast assumes use of available operating reserves. So we are using some cash reserves to fund the capital plan. And there's also grant funding, ARPA being one, and I think there's FDP and as well as other grants funding that capital plan. And actually, here's a breakdown of the capital plan by funding source. So you can see in red about 61% of the CIP is funded using debt, 28% funded through rates and cash reserves, and 11% funded through various grants that the city is expected to receive. So the projected annual revenue adjustments for fiscal year 2024, we've projected that the 3%, kind of maintaining that 3% for the upcoming year would be sufficient to pay for the cost of operations. And then you can see 25 through 28, it's looking more like 5% rate increases. the last presentation last year that was given to you, that 5% rate increase began in fiscal year 2027. We've kind of slid that up 2 years, largely because, inflation's been higher than we've expected over the last couple of years, and just the timing of the debt service and capital projects have necessitated that bringing up those rate increases a little bit sooner. However, the city does look at this every year, so if assumptions or if things change, we'll revisit it next year. If those projects take a little bit longer and those debt service, we don't issue debt as soon as we thought we were going to, that could potentially push out those rate increases. So the reasons for the rate adjustments, one is to keep up with inflationary increases in operating costs. We all kind of have been dealing with inflation, and the utility is not exempt from that. Continued renewal and replacement requirements and overall capital funding needs. Again, the capital plan is about $115 million over the forecast period. We also want to maintain cash reserves between 90 and 120 days, which those rates that we just showed you will do. And, another thing is credit rating agencies, they consider your cash reserve a key metric for your credit rating. So cash reserves and coverage are something the credit rating agencies are looking at. So to the extent that you need to issue marketable, publicly issued bonds in the future, you want to maintain that possibility and have the best interest rates for the city. And other reasons for the rate adjustments, we want to maintain debt service coverage requirements. So the senior lien bonds and the SRF loans both have coverage requirements. The fund needs to maintain a certain amount of net revenues above those debt service payments to be in compliance with the bond resolution and the SRF loan agreements. And ultimately, all these funds are to maintain reliable water and wastewater service to the city's customers. This might be a little bit difficult to see on this screen, but this just shows a typical monthly bill for a 3/4 inch residential customer at existing and proposed 2024 rates. We're proposing uniform rate increases. So, your typical average, your average bill, it's going to go up 3%, whether you're a 3/4 inch meter or a 1.5 inch meter, given the same usage. So in this case, the average residential bill at 5,000 gallons would be going up $2.70 per month. We also have the same comparison for a commercial bill. The rate structure is a little bit different for commercial customers. Still going up 3%, but here that commercial bill at 5,000 gallons going up $3.39. And the final comparison here is a 1.5 inch meter. This bill is going up about $9.36. This is again a 1.5 inch meter at 15,000 gallons of usage in a commercial account. And then we have a rate comparison here, how the city is looking to neighboring jurisdictions and communities. And you can see that Titusville is right here in the middle of this group here and right at the average bill. So the line on the left there is the existing and on the right is the proposed. And all these other municipalities on here are shown at 2023 rates, and many of them will be passing along rate adjustments in fiscal year 2024. So keep that in mind. But we expect that certainly over the next few years that barring nothing significant happening, that Titusville will maintain right around that average, just like many of these other neighboring utilities. So our conclusion and recommendation to the City Council is to continue the 3% rate adjustment that we forecast last year for fiscal year 2024 to recover the increased cost of operations, adequately maintain system operating margins, and fund ongoing capital needs and anticipated new debt. Based on the forecast assumptions and the proposed 5% rate increases for fiscal year 2025 through 2028, revenues are estimated to be adequate to fund the water and wastewater capital improvement plan and operating expenses, as well as the proposed rates are projected to meet the bond resolution's rate covenant requirements, SRF loan criteria, and the financial policies of the cities. And that's all I have, and I'll turn it over if you have any questions for me.
Council? Member Nelson?
I did have one question. So if I go back to slide 7, I know this is asking for you to look into your crystal ball. And I realized too that we sort of held the rate increases very steady for a number of years, even some years that I'm sure the city manager was probably a little white, a little shocked, little worried, as we all were. After fiscal year 28, do you expect the rates to go, the percentage to go down?
It's hard to say at this point. You know, we don't know what capital projects are, you know, we don't know what the capital projects are going to look like out past 2028.
Okay.
We don't know what inflation's going to be out. We really don't know what inflation's going to be next year. We tend to take a conservative approach, both in forecasting revenues, projecting expenditures. So generally speaking, you know, I would say when we make these estimates, we want to outperform the estimate.
Okay.
Because we want to be conservative, but we also want to, you know, not set rates too high where we're over recovering. So I can't necessarily answer that. You know, what rates are going to be out there. I don't know if there's some big project looming out there or not. But I would say that if the city continues to maintain, you know, this kind of level-handed approach and just doing these almost these inflationary indexing year over year,
Okay.
I think that's kind of your best bet to stay ahead and not have to, you know, implement some big rate increase in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You did answer my question, and Member Nelson also added on to it. I like the fact that you were projected from 25 to 28, 5%. I would have liked it much better had you had projected 4%. But I understand. But is that a standard you got when you're projecting forward? You use a 2% measure or increase, like from 3 to 5, or you just stay. Our economy is in a mess, and you just trying to make sure that there's some kind of equilibrium going on in this process.
Well, you know, things have changed a lot in the last few years with the rate of inflation. So it's been, you know, when we were doing projections in 2019, these 5-year projections in 2019 and 2020, we never anticipated that inflation would be 6 to 8%. But, you know, the approach that we take, you know, I mentioned the consumer price index and projections from the Congressional Budget Office, which is, I think it was 2.4%, which is a pretty low estimate compared to the inflation rate we're seeing today. But, you know, that information is the best information that we have. So, you know, we try to take, again, this kind of level-handed approach and be as realistic as we can with our projections and you know, at the same time, you know, in the city's case, if you're going to look at this every year, you know, I think that we'll, you know, us and staff will have a finger on the pulse of rate increases going forward.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I like what you've done, but I would like it better if you had it been lower. I'm stingy, that's all, and with
I
my
understand.
money, and I like to be stingy with the the citizens of the city of Titusville money as well. All right?
Yeah, everybody likes
And I can
low
help
rates.
Trevor a little bit. One of the big drivers is that this capital plan is heavy. The city has about 330 million in master plans on the shelf. This is starting the process of getting force mains replaced, plant upgrades built, water mains replaced. So the capital plan is driving a lot of the rate increase because the operating of the utility is one hand, but the capital side is a very heavy, using debt to help spread that out. So you're paying for that in a 15-year window instead of a 4-year window. So that's helping keep the rate at 5, which if we try to pay as you go could be much higher if we were straight paying cash for everything. But this plan incorporates a lot of improvements. To answer your question about beyond 28, there's a lot of current mandates coming out that we don't know what effect it will have, PFAS being one, that depending if that's a plant improvement that has to come forth, that will be another heavy lift into the plant side of capital improvements.
Thank you.
And that explains a question I was going to have, the 61% debt part. That simply means we're stretching that out through the loan process. All right. That
And those
sounds-
loans are at less than 1% generally.
Yeah,
And we can seek forgiveness on the loan too, in certain circumstances.
Okay, good. Because right in the pie chart, that pink stood out pretty good to me. Member Stokel.
Yep. Along the same lines, and Kevin kind of, I think, alluded to what I was going to ask, is for those of us that have gone through this for a while, I think we were used to seeing 3% or maybe even 0%. But then I think inflation happened, and then the heavy capital projects. I guess moving forward, we can't plan for certain things. I appreciate the conservative 5% because hopefully maybe we'll get 4. Who knows? With grants and as things change potentially. Since it is a heavy capital plan right now, capital improvement plan, do we anticipate, I guess, our plan moving forward, it's heavy right now, do we anticipate doing that incrementally in the future? I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say, Kevin?
Yeah, I think some of the stuff we're planning now is catching up from 1960s infrastructure.
Yes.
So once they're replaced, those will be on a much longer duration.
Okay.
So, technology allows it to go 50 years between a pipe replacement, and that's what we would plan. There will be some capital we're doing now, like filter replacements on the water plant. That's $4 million. That's going to happen every 5 years regardless.
Okay.
So some of those are never going to go away. They are repetitive replacements, but some of the longer ones will hopefully upon replacement, like the Indian River Force Main, will be done after with other people at the head of the utility at that point.
Okay.
The
yeah.
lifespan will outweigh the time. So, yeah, I think you'll see some stuff spread out. There just is a lot of unknowns.
Yes, which we can't plan for. I guess my hope is I think that we're dealing with a lot of issues that we weren't here when those happened, and I would like to see moving forward that things are happening incrementally so citizens in the future aren't hit all at one point in time as we kind of plan for the future. But I appreciate it. Thank you.
Member Nelson.
And I'm just going to say that every time I see a capital project that fixes our old infrastructure, I get excited because to me that tells me those problems are not going to go into the lagoon. So in essence, we're working, even though look at it and go, it's sewer, but we're working to protect our lagoon. So for that, thank you.
Including the big one right now.
Yeah.
Member Cole.
Yeah, I too, when you look at 2%, but the amount on the 3% is, it's somewhat, it's only like maybe $2.50 per customer. What we have to realize most of all is we have an aging infrastructure. We do not know when something's going to go bad. So I think that Kevin, you and your crew are being very proactive and trying to bring in capital projects so we don't have a catastrophic break. That will hurt us financially. So I like the way it's planned, and in our budget, I looked at the capital projects, and I feel very secure about that. And I think that our population are more than willing to pay a 5% increase if we can avoid a catastrophic leak, break, sewage spill, whatever. So, thank you.
And I would just add to what you said, Member Cole, it would also hurt us environmentally. So, I mean, that's, prevent. Anything else from council? Anything you guys want to add?
Just wanted to add that the rate increases are advertised on the water bills. They're cycling out now, so the date of the final public hearing of the budget is set on the water bill, location, and time. So everyone will be getting on their water bill, currently cycling through both here and the one community we bill under COCO's water supply. So
I would just add what I understand best, outside all those big numbers and this and that. If you're within the 5,000 gallons, your water bill is only going to go up $2.70. I mean, that's what I understand. And so I appreciate that. All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
City Manager.
Next, we're on item 4C, which is the Police Hall of Fame expansion project. We have representatives here to provide a presentation to council.
I'll sit after I've paid my respects. I just want to thank the mayor and city council and everybody for allowing us an opportunity to come in and to present an exciting project that we've got going in. Thankfully, up here at this north end of the county, and we're very excited about it. And I think that you guys will be too. We'll try and be very brief because what we are looking to do is to kind of break this presentation down into three sections. One is we would like to start with about a 4-minute and 47-second video that will explain a little bit more about who we are. Because some of you know us as a museum, but you don't really know exactly what we actually do under our roof. The second part is all right, maybe that'll help them. It doesn't help me. I'm hearing impaired, so. So we're going to break that down into a video, which I'm hoping we get a little help on because I'm not sure we're all that tech savvy. And then we have about 17 or 18 slides that we can get through really quick, and then we'll finish with another 4-minute video that really shows the project in depth and what we're going to be doing. So we're hoping to wrap the presentation up, at least as far as our part, in about 15 minutes, and then you can have any questions or whatever would be great. Thank you.
the video.
Uh-oh.
Okay. We're looking for the video. No, the videos
We're
were
doing a video,
separate.
then the PowerPoint, and then a finishing video. So it probably got loaded out of order.
Well, that was
You
quick.
might want to tell the guys in the back about the video.
Hey, guys in the
Oh, you're
back
going to
up
spoil
Yeah.
everything.
They might. Is there a video? No? There's no video.
No videos. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just
You
keep
guys can
moving
act
along.
it out, maybe.
Yes. Thank you. So we'll just keep moving along. We're really excited. Hopefully, I'm Jeff Strine. I'm the Chief Advancement Officer for the United States Law Enforcement Foundation. And we hope to not only share with you a little bit about who we are, but generate some real excitement for what this project means really for Titusville as well as Brevard County. We like to think of our role at the United States Law Enforcement Foundation as keeper of the flame that illuminates the profession really of law enforcement and hopefully inspires the next generation as well. Timing is always important. There's probably no better time for our project than right now with the state of our law enforcement around the country. We, at the highest level, illuminate the stories. We're going to become much more of a storytelling organization. The stories of those who serve, the stories that don't get told, the stories especially of the humanity of law enforcement. And in addition, we'll facilitate more and more dialogue by convening thought leaders in
in the U.S. in various ways through symposiums, small group conversations, national surveys, which we have done for several decades. Some of you know us as the shooting center. My Uber driver, the very first day I drove in, said, "Oh, that's the gun range. What else do they do there?" Some know us as the Police Hall of Fame. Our existing 50,000 square foot facility on the Nassau Causeway is home to a 60-year-old organization that was founded in Northport, Florida, relocated to Miami, and then back to this part of Florida about 24 years ago. We also operate the National Association of Chiefs of Police and the American Federation. You're not seeing any of this, sorry. And the American Federation of Police and Concerned Citizens. So our organization is, has quite a history, and there are actually historically three separate 501c3s. These have recently been merged into one umbrella organization called the United States Law Enforcement Foundation. It's more representative of our vision and where we want to head. We are 501c3, and all three are based here in Titusville, but have a national platform. So where are we heading? Our vision is to invest $55 million to scale our impact 10 times in a relatively short period of time in the next 3 years. We'll focus on two specific cohorts. We'll focus on families and traditional tourism, attracting some of those 3 million that are traveling out the causeway this year, I think, is the plan. Into our own visitor experience. And then we have a very specific cohort, and that cohort are law enforcement sworn officers that are serving today, about 900,000 of them around the country, about 4 million of their families, and then in addition there's obviously retired, which I really don't have a handle on. So millions and millions of our law enforcement family will be invited and intentionally, hopefully, lured to this part of the Space Coast to participate in various programs. And I'm going to tell you about those here in a second. So our new campus. If you know us as the museum, it's a 50,000 square foot facility. That will be repurposed into a world-class visitor experience, an immersive visitor experience, a highly curated story around the importance of law enforcement. The idea is that people that come to this will come with a various kind of relationship, I guess, to law enforcement, good, bad, or indifferent. They'll have a fun time. They'll see some history. They'll see some Americana, and then it'll get real. And our hope is that as it gets real and people exit, that they'll have a newfound appreciation for the folks that are out there every day serving and protecting us. We call that the ILEX, the Immersive Law Enforcement Experience. We'll also have our tribute to law enforcement, our 120-foot tall Eternal Flame Monument, and a 1,000-seat convention center, which will be about 20,000 square feet. It'll serve our needs as well as the needs of the corporate community and the community at large. In addition, we'll have a new training facility for law enforcement. We'll have world-class virtual reality training simulators, and it'll house our education program, which serves really to educate around soft skills as well as tactical training. This is what you would see in our video, the pictures. So these are the most current renderings. This is the monument To the right is our conference center. To the back is our new welcome center. What you see around the park, around the walkways, are what we call state tributes. Every state is going to have an opportunity to have their own tribute at this park. It's going to be the first ever park and campus that's dedicated to and themed around law enforcement, in, as far as we know, anywhere. So new welcome center gives you some idea of what how you'd enter the park. This is the entrance to the ILEX. Same. This is a first concept rendering of the technology, how we'll tell stories. Probably won't look anything like that, but gives you some idea. There's the monument to scale, give you some idea. I don't think there are many 120-foot tall structures around. We've had the FAA approve this twice now as we continued to add some height to this. So walkway into the conference center. So how do you raise we're a nonprofit, so how do you raise $55 million? I like to tell everyone we're one gift away. Sometimes that happens. It's not a good strategy. But it's all about getting the right leadership that can get the doors open, get us in front of the right people. We've got a team right now working on this. Our sales team includes myself and a couple of other people, one that's based in New York. We've got one actually in Europe. And you'll see a few names on here, many that you know. There are some you may not know. Tom O'Neill in Massachusetts is Tip's son, for those of you that are old enough to remember Tip O'Neill. And his son is 70 now, so he's not a young son, but he's done a lot in Massachusetts. Why is Massachusetts important? It has obviously some wealthy people that we're interested in talking to, but it's also a blue state. So we are apolitical, and we want to make sure that that everybody understands that. Sometimes not. It's a hard line to walk periodically, but it would be a symbolic. Having Massachusetts come along would be symbolic in a lot of different ways. And so anyway, we've been busy pulling this list of leaders together for the past year and a half. The economic impact, we've had a study done. We can make sure it's available to everybody that's interested. NBEDS did this for us. Our projections are based on 250,000 visitors, ticket buying visitors to the ILEX in the third year. It'll ramp up to 250, and then we'll scale from there. That will change a lot for our organization, as well as the impact to the local economy. 30 direct jobs, which is conservative. That doesn't include the conference center. It's probably, we've been told by Delaware North that we could probably add 15 more direct jobs for our conference center. 153,000 hotel bed nights and 35 million in a direct local economic spending impact. We've tested these numbers as well we've got two other studies. One is from Venue Strategies that tested our 250,000 projected ticket buyers. They're a national consulting firm. Again, Delaware North had provided us that name. And then also the Pinnacle Advisory Group did a study on our conference facility. We're actually in discussion with Delaware North to operate that, either the whole campus or just simply the conference center. So they've been good partners in this project since the beginning. You can't see this very well. This is our phasing plan, our project timeline. Basically, the green is our fundraising activity. We are intending to fund the full amount, full 55 million, by the end of second quarter next year. And that's commitments and cash. So it doesn't always work that way, but that's what we're attempting to do. We'll phase construction if we have to. The idea is that if we have it all committed, we'll be able to do more, maybe all of it at the same time. And we hope to do a ribbon cutting during Police Week, which is our big event. I know some of you have been there, in May of 2025. So that's what we're working towards. This is our funding plan. There's a regional campaign, local regional Florida campaign, that's 20% of the total. The rationale is that the economic impact is largely felt here. We need to get the flywheel turning when we travel across the country. First question is usually, well, what's the local group going to do, and so on and so forth. So we're working on that right now. We've raised about $5 million and just over $5 million in commitments. We have a cohort that's state tributes. We've built 10 of them into our plan, and we're busy working on those states now. And then we have a national campaign, which is equally federal grants as well as some more individual philanthropy, as well as corporate sponsorships. And that's it.
Very nice. Very well done. The movie would, no. But I like all of it. Obviously, I'm honored that we have the Police Hall of Fame in our city. I think that's an important factor for us. To me, it kind of says where we live, what we do. I also like the, I don't know, am I using the right word? I say a conference center, convention center. And you mentioned it in there. That would be very beneficial to an awful lot of groups, corporations, organizations, and maybe something that fills a void and a need that we don't have right now. So that's just an added plus. The main thing, I think, of course, is it's a Police Hall of Fame, and it stands on its own merit.
I think we've added, just to respond to that comment about the conference facility, it's probably at least, maybe not quite half more than we really needed initially. And because of the feedback we were getting from the community, we've expanded that. So we're hopeful that we'll get the kind of support from the community at large, as well as the corporate community in North Brevard, as that comes to fruition.
Very good. Thank you. Council, anything? Any questions, comments?
If I may interject real quick, they were able to find one of the videos.
I thought that might be.
Which I'm glad they did, because I'll be honest with you, I paid $20,000 for that 4-minute video, so I really would like to play it.
I would think you should play it twice.
Level you enter into the park. You're looking now at the ILEX. This is the covered awning. The badge is an LED panel, big LED panel, so we'll be able to reprogram that based on what's taking place that particular day. And then there's a reveal. You know, the idea was that we didn't want everybody to be able to see the monument by just driving up into the parking lot. So you have to enter into the park, and then this will be the entryway walking up to the monument. This will be fitted with, we're working with the creative designers now. We've been told that we could even have holographic images inside at night, inside the middle of that. So this is going to be probably more utilized for events and such in the evening hours. This is the conference facility, the rendering. One thing I didn't mention is that, we're going to become, if you've ever been there, you've seen a kind of an eclectic mix collection of things. If you're in law enforcement or have families, you'd stay and spend more time. But the content will be storytelling. So we'll be curating stories of interest, personal stories. One that we're focusing on kind of initially is the story of the Irish in law enforcement. It's a powerful story. It dates back to the 1800s when the Irish first showed up in New York. And even today, there's a huge number of sworn officers that would, call themselves Irish Americans. So our background, the reason we have somebody in Europe is because we've worked in Ireland with the Abbey Theatre. Most of that money comes from the U.S., from wealthy Irish Americans. And so that's a story that we want to get out there first to help us with fundraising. Just to give you an idea. This is our version of the space bar. Okay. And we're going to have a rocket out there someday soon, launching.
Yep. Now, the monument itself, even though it doesn't show it here, will actually, the infinity symbol will actually be lighted and able to change colors and stuff like that. So at 10 stories tall, if you're driving through Titusville, especially on this end, you'll really be able to see that from a pretty good distance. So for us as an attention getter, it brings more people onto the campus. It means that it will be open later in the evening because it will be one of the few nighttime attractions here in this area. So we will be open much later in the evening. That'll be the best time for viewing. So for a lot of people, that means that if you're really not from the county and you've come over and you've done your thing at Kennedy Space Center or at the beach or wherever, if you want to see this thing in its glory, then the best time to view would be at night, which means then you go to Dixie Crossroads for dinner, and then you might come by our place, visit and see what we got going on, and then from there you're probably going to stay the night someplace here in the area. So we feel pretty good about not just the project as a whole, but also from some of the support that we've got already from the community, the support we've gotten from our neighbors in the area. And then, of course, we did 3 independent studies, as Jeff alluded to, and all 3 of those studies were very favorable, and they helped support all the numbers that you saw up here. So we didn't just kind of pull them out of a hat. They came from independent studies. So we were very happy to see what those numbers were, and that's what we've based our whole pro forma off of. Okay. So if there's any questions,
Member Cole.
we're here.
Yes, I've obviously been out there, and I'm very impressed with the facility that you have. And I look at your projections of what you want to put in, and it looks like a tremendous economic engine for our city, and happy to have it here. I guess I just want to ask, what is it that what support do you need from us as a city?
Well, we are only one gift away, so I'm just kidding.
Stop beating around the bush.
We do need financial support. We think having the city's support, whatever level is appropriate is good for us as we get out of the area and start telling the story. It'll be good to say the city is behind us, the county is behind us, the local community is behind us.
Can you give us a ballpark idea of what you're asking for?
I don't know. I mean, and we've kicked it around a little bit. We'd love it if somehow the city could come up with $40,000 or $50,000. That would be great for us. And we know you have a lot of other things, but that would be very helpful.
I understand that when you go out there, you want to make sure that you have the support of the city. That would be very important. That's, important in fundraising, for sure.
Yeah, that's right. And to give you some idea, we're blessed to have a close friend of the founder, who's up in years. He's in his early 80s. He lives in Scotland, and he's made the first commitment of $2.5 million. There may be more there, but it's interesting how, this will have an ability to attract capital from outside the area.
Anybody else? I see none. I feel like that's a good intro to the project that I didn't have before, and feel like, and the movie was important, just kind of give you that walk around feel. So I think that was good. So unless there's anything else, and I see none, we're good. Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you.
City manager.
We're on to item 4D, which is the urban tree canopy report. This is staff's response to City Council's direction on 14 March 23 to evaluate the Titusville Environmental Commission's recommendations that were related to the urban tree canopy assessment by Plan IT Geo. And Mr. Parrish is here to provide you the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish.
I don't have a PowerPoint to present to you. I'm just going to give you staff responses to questions that you posed to us 6 months ago related to this item. Back in March, you had asked us to come back with some answers to questions and to evaluate TEC's recommendations related to that canopy assessment that was completed by that consultant, Planet Geo, out of Colorado. I provided to you on page 9 of your packet our responses. Your first question is to evaluate software. We've made recommendations as to which software to use to do a regular cycle of canopy evaluation or assessment, so every 2-3 years, and we'll commit to that. Our GIS staff is able to do that. You've also asked us to look at funding opportunities. There are grants out there. Most of the grants that are available for plantings or any kind of planting grants require a 1-to-1 match. There's a program with the Florida Forest Service. You also asked us about partnering with other communities or other organizations, rather. We have done that in the past. I've identified a couple of examples where we did that in 2017 and again in 2021. So we do have a sustainability planner who will continue to take the lead, has always taken the lead on this effort on small-scale planting projects, donations, based on whatever the event's going on, and also applying for any grants if necessary for education and materials. And then again, our GIS staff will continue to do what you've asked us to do, which is every 2 to 3 years to do an analysis of our canopy. In the report on page 10 of your packet, I've provided responses to the recommendations that TEC asked to be added to that initial report by Planet Geo. We believe a lot of what they are asking for is above and beyond the scope and requirement of that report. That report is essentially basically just finding out where we are today as far as canopy, and it's really meant to be a monitoring tool. So a lot of what was being requested by TEC, I believe, was more specific ground truthing, which is kind of the information we typically would get maybe at a site plan stage and not at this high-level stage that this report was really addressing. So with that, I'll try and answer any questions you have. We don't have a direction that we're asking from you on this. We're just responding to your questions.
Member Nelson.
So first, who is our new sustainability planner?
Abigail Trout is our new sustainability planner. She just started with us a few weeks ago. She came to us from Jacksonville.
Okay. That's the start. Brad, are there programs where we can turn around and get trees for certain areas in our community to shade the sidewalks, the roads?
What we've used in the past on sidewalks or public property, if that's what you're asking for, a more
Yeah.
robust planting program, or the kind of small-scale planting events that we've been doing in the past.
I would say small scale. I will tell you, this morning, our Rotary group.
We've been using the
Offers.
Landscape Trust Fund and
Okay,
asking your permission to do that in the past.
that would work.
Now, that only used, like 1 year we used about $11,000, I think we utilized for gathering trees and giving that as part of a giveaway program for, and I believe I have here for the 150th anniversary of the city, that kind of
Didn't we
program.
use the Landscape Trust Fund for the gateways?
Yeah, so right now, the bulk of that money that's in that trust fund is dedicated to the Gateway Planting Program. That's with Public Works.
And how long do we expect that to go?
That's a
For-
question.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that Kevin probably had a better
Is
answer.
that a
to
Kevin question?
How long before they get planted, or how long does the money gonna last?
How long before we have extra money?
Well, we're still waiting on DOT permits, so that's not an indefinite, but that's still wait and see. I know he responded a few months ago to a DOT request for some new locates at Garden Street, but we need to get that so we can bid it out, and then I suspect that,
And then we'll know how much money.
yeah, we'll know at that point how much is left over. We don't have any other gateways moving forward in planning stages. They're just the two that were finalized and designed for permitting, so those are the only two locations currently set for construction.
Okay. Thank you.
Member Cole?
It's my understanding that we use the $100,000 that we have from maintaining and cutting and debris pickup for the trees. When the planting of additional trees, what would we have to do to fund it so that we can add to that $100,000? Are there any avenues that we can use to do that with?
Right now, we do not have anything budgeted beyond what we already do. But you want to go beyond that. I've identified that there are planting grants, one with the Florida Forest Service and another one that we've identified with the U.S. Forest Service. But they both require a one-to-one match of some sort.
So,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Brad, so what volunteer labor, so to speak, count toward that one-to-one grant?
It depends on what the grant says or what would allow us to qualify for that one-to-one match. What we did with the Florida Forest Service grant that we received in order to do the canopy assessment that Planet Geo from Colorado did for us, they gave us an award of $17,000, which was less than what we initially asked for. But it was a one-to-one match, so we had to make up that one-to-one with staff time and evaluating and developing part of that plan.
Okay. Okay, I think that answers my question.
Any other questions or comments on that right now? Okay, we'll stay on hold for that right now. City Manager?
On to item 4E, which is the Florida Live Local Act, and Mr. Parrish will provide you a presentation, and there will be an actionable item on your 6:30 meeting.
So if you recall, this law was adopted earlier this year. It became effective July 1st of this year. And it allows for, it kind of trumps local regulation or local ability to deny an affordable housing project, even on commercial or an industrially zoned property, as long as it meets certain criteria. There are many other provisions in this law that the legislature allocated a tremendous amount of money towards affordable housing projects, more so than ever in the past. I think it's about $300 million plus right now in various different projects. It does include 3 new tax incentives tools, one of which that local jurisdictions are allowed to adopt. It includes a requirement that we also identify all publicly owned pieces of property that may qualify for affordable housing, not just city-owned, but also included in other agencies that might be inside our boundaries, have those listed on our website, and have an expedited process on there. It sunsets in October of 2033. It is a self-executing law. It does not require us to pass an ordinance to implement it. It does ask us basically to come up with some considerations, whether that's through some kind of action by city council or maybe some administrative interpretation. And that's why we're here today, this evening. We have looked at this law and tried to figure out how we can implement it when someone decides to come in and try to qualify for it. Some communities are coming up with a certification process. Some communities are coming up with an ordinance to help address it. And some communities are coming up with an administrative process that defines how to implement it with certain policies and procedures. So one way we can do this is come up with an administrative process. One way we could do this. And then another option that we can do is also adopt an ad valorem local option, which is what I'll bring up at the end. I did include a few slides from the Florida Housing Coalition in your agenda packet that kind of describes this particular ad valorem option. We would think that if we would decide to go forward with that particular option, that we would propose where it would be most appropriate. And generally that would be in areas where there's transit. Just to refresh your memory about this, there are three main things that are preempted in by this law to local ordinance. And that is, we have to, if they qualify according to this law, that a affordable housing project must be allowed or permitted on a property that is zoned commercial or industrial. That we have to use the density that's the highest in the city. Currently, that's 30 units per acre. And we have to allow the height to be up to the height that would be allowed where it would be permitted within a mile from it. Now, the condition is that we must approve a multifamily mixed-use residential if at least 40% of the residential uses are affordable. And then there has to be standards in qualifying to make sure that they're actually going to be restricted for 30 years as affordable in some way. We cannot require land use or zoning change, a CUP, or any other kind of development order process that requires a public hearing. Density cannot be restricted below the highest allowed. Again, that's 30 units per acre, and that's based because of our downtown mixed-use zoning district. This just kind of identifies where height would be allowed, basically, up to the highest, and it's pretty much the entire city. And there's two reasons for that. We have a zoning district that's commercial that allows a maximum height without any limitation. But if you increase the height above the 35 feet, for every foot you go above that, you have to increase your setback. There's another standard in our code where it includes a height overlay, which you can bring buildings up to potentially 75 feet. All other standards are going to be applicable, though, outside of what was preempted. They must be consistent with our comprehensive plan and any other development standards that we have, including concurrency-related review. Setbacks of that zoning district. We are a little confused as to which setbacks of which particular zoning district or which development type should be applicable. So, for example, a commercial zoning district or an industrial zoning district does not have a residential component in it or any standards related for a residential. So when you allow a residential development in there, we need to have some guidance as to which standards we should use and apply. We have to include an expedited review process. We currently have that right now, but we need to specifically call it out for the Live Local Act. Neighborhood Services is working on the inventory which is a requirement of this law, and we're going to have that posted on our website fairly soon. We are allowed to include an option where you may approve an affordable housing project on an industrially or commercially zoned property if a minimum of the number of residential units is 10% is affordable. So that's optional to the city. We are proposing, I included in your packet, some proposed definitions. These are just working definitions, working development standards, and working procedures to help address some of the gaps that we saw in the law. And so we've come up with a proposed definition of what's mixed use. The law says, though, that when you identify what is industrial and what is commercial, you add it all up, and if the percentage is below 20% of your entire city, then you must require a mixed-use component as part of that development. So we need to have some kind of definition, and we, based on our preliminary analysis, we are actually underneath that 20% threshold. So if a project comes in to try to qualify under Live Local on a commercial or industrially zoned property, they would have to include some kind of mixed-use component. We would need to decide which particular residential zoning standards to apply. An example would be to use the multifamily R2 zoning district standards. There are many other examples in our code that we could utilize, though, but we just need to select one and just utilize that for every new project. We could consider maybe open space criteria. We have to consider parking waivers. We have that tool already in our code, and we do have to come up with that certification process and expedited review procedures. And then lastly, the local option, ad valorem option that's in the statute that we can adopt, that would require an ordinance. So if you support this idea of maybe utilizing this option and allowing or granting an ad valorem reduction for a property, and would only apply to that portion of property that's restricted to affordable housing, we would propose it to be only available to those projects in certain areas of the city that are most appropriate. That's something we still need to explore as to what limitations there may be on that. But if you support that option, we'll go forward with drafting an ordinance and bring it back for you. So that's what I have this evening. I'll try and answer any questions you have about this. There is an action item asking for you to give us direction at your 6:30 meeting.
Member Stokel.
Do we have to do something right now, in your opinion, with the way that this law is in effect as it stands? I know it said like they are suggesting, but do we have to as a council?
You do not. However, what happens is if we have a project that comes in that says they want to qualify under Live Local, it's going to be up to staff to determine how they qualify. There are a lot of open questions as to what is the certification process. We would like council's guidance and blessing on some of our interpretations of what we believe are appropriate and how to implement this. That would really back us up, and that's what we want to propose to you. We can do that. We're still discussing that as to whether that's going to need an ordinance or resolution, or maybe you just leave it up to us to do an administrative interpretation letter that we would just apply. We're not sure how that would work. But we believe we need to come up with something for it.
Yeah, I feel like, and it would be helpful to know exactly what open-ended areas you're most concerned about. I feel like I was going to do this on my council reports, just even being at the Florida League of Cities conference. This was a big issue that we talked about, and we even there was one state rep that was there that had said, already that there's issues that are arising from this. So it is my hope that this will be amended. I don't think it will go away, but it will potentially be amended this next session. Stop, don't laugh. But I feel like they're already seeing some unintended consequences already happening. My biggest one is them coming in and us having no clear guidance or direction. If it's 40% affordable housing, it can go essentially anywhere residential. That, I think, is a big one that I'm seeing from the presentation. It sounded like you said that may approve, so we don't have to with the industrial area.
If they qualify under this law, we have to permit it if they qualify for all the conditions here. So, for example, if the proposed multifamily development, minimum of the number of units has to be affordable housing, and then also meet other criteria in this law, we have to approve it on that industrially zoned property or that commercially zoned property. That's how we read it.
Would you, as staff, make the determination and say, we would approve it, but it's not consistent with this comp plan, so we deny it?
The law preempts that. So
Okay.
there are other things that would have to be consistent, such as concurrency. So if we don't have the level, if it's going to exceed our level of service standard for concurrency-related facility, we won't be able to approve it. If we have other standards in our code, such as that traffic impacts or whatever that might be, or access management, they still have to meet all those other development standards. I think the biggest issue that we're having right now is defining what is an appropriate residential development standard to apply to a zoning district that doesn't allow currently residential. And so we have R2, R3, those are the multifamily zoning districts that typically we refer to. But there are other zoning districts that allow mixed-use development that also allow multifamily that could potentially be utilized. So it's kind of we have to decide and work with the developer to figure out which standards to apply when we get a project. And so we're kind of picking and choosing. And that's a really precarious position to be in when you're trying to determine whether you can approve a development or not.
Clear as mud.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, I have a horrible picture in my mind, if we don't get ahead of this process. And I know that in some of our already standards, we have accessibility to public transportation, accessibility to schools, accessibility to emergency services, and we want to highly emphasize those particular types of things as we go along with the Live Local Act. I don't want us to get into a position where we have a affordable housing community sitting out in the middle of nowhere, and people act like everybody out there has a bubonic plague or leprosy. So we want to stay away from that, and we want to, I would suggest that staff try to accumulate how much land or how much space available within the city limits that we can start working on that may have been at some time used for industrial type of work that we can get maybe along Garden Street or somewhere in there, maybe out Singleton, Dairy Road coming this way. We may find some things. If we go over to the south end, I know that we have built a beautiful development out off of Sesson, off of Grissom. Get back off it, and don't, with that being out there, I think we'd be in a good, safe area if we can designate it, possibly some of that area for housing before it's too late, because I know that we have developers already on 407, 405 corner there. And then that, again, is going to affect our emergency services and I know we have plans on locating a emergency response team out in that area at least a portable team at the police station, I think, something like that, fire department. So I recommend, and my guidance on that is that we try to get ahead to make sure that we are not creating, New York City isolated in the middle of nowhere, where because the people are low income or medium to low income, you can tell everybody that that's where you go. I don't want that stigma attached to anything, that if we have to go in and to this Live Local process, we want to have some things in mind. If the staff could kind of show us what spots are maybe available, and we can look at that and say, okay, let's groom this particular spot to be designated if someone want to come in and do some Live Local type of development. Okay? That's my input on it.
Member Nelson?
Okay, so to me, we need standards to apply. I mean, I think from what you're saying, that's a more immediate problem. But beyond that, I'd really like to sit down and study it a lot more and maybe go over it with Brad piece by piece. I swore after I left the state attorney's office I wasn't going to read statutes, but it sounds like I'm going to be reading statutes.
This one.
Yeah, because I want to make sure I understand it. I understand there are some definitions within the statute. So the question for me is really, other than standards to apply, where do we go?
I would agree. Yeah, we didn't see this one coming.
Yeah.
Member Cole?
You know, this, as Member Stokel said, this is clear as mud. So we can't designate, if a developer comes in and he buys a plot of land, no matter where it is, if it meets these requirements, we don't have the opportunity to approve or disapprove that project. Is that a true or false statement?
A property that's currently zoned industrial or commercial, and
If it's zoned residential, commercial, recreation?
that'd be different.
That's different.
Yeah, this is specifically to commercial and
This is
industrial.
specific commercial,
Commercial and industrial.
commercial and industrial. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Which, quite honestly, by definition, would a residential development likely would be out of place.
Yeah, well, the presentations we've listened to from the Florida Housing Coalition and others, the main intention of this law was to allow for redevelopment of some derelict properties. So for example, you got a commercial strip center along a major commercial corridor. It's derelict, it's unused, it's vacant, buildings are there. This isn't a great opportunity for it to be redeveloped. And we definitely need affordable housing along a commercial corridor like that, especially with this transit. But I think what the unintended consequence was, it just didn't limit it to that area. Now it's kind of opened up to a lot of other areas that are industrial as well, and commercial areas that are probably not along major corridors like that. So you can have an industrial park potentially with an affordable housing project in the middle of it.
Right. Exactly what I'm saying. Member Nelson?
So I think, based on what you're saying, the most important thing is standards to apply. But I also look and say, for those people that are out there, the low-income people, we also need some open space and recreation. Because that would not be fair to do that to them. So that's my thought.
All right, anybody else? I think for now, that's as well as we're informed. I think that, and I think Member Stokel kind of noted that. I'm not, I'd like to hear a little more about, you said some other areas are doing some ordinances or this or that. Maybe we can look at those. But to bring it out of the air, again, my biggest concern is by rule, it sounds like where they can do this, industrial and commercial are probably places that aren't really conducive to housing projects. And I'll just leave it at that. So with that, thank you very much, Brad. City Manager?
On to the last agenda item, which is letters of appreciation. I'd like to read them for the record. They're all from the fire department. It's Lieutenant Danny Ellis, driver operator Josh Hall, and then fire EMT Samuel Delgato.
Congratulations. It's nice to be noted by the public. Appreciate it. All right, move on to petitions or requests from the public. You do not have to have a card for this, and I think you guys know that. Matter of fact, Ms. Kate will lead the way, in case you're curious.
Kason on Maryland Avenue, and I want to speak to item 4D that was on your agenda, the urban tree canopy assessment. On March 14, City Council voted to accept the findings and recommendations of the urban tree canopy assessment conducted by the consultant Planet Geo. Staff's proposed strategies to address the consultant's general recommendations have been provided to you. The consultant's general recommendations emphasize expanding the city's urban forest to its potential, focusing tree planting efforts in areas that offer the greatest benefits to reduce summertime temperatures by shading walkways and roadways, which is TEC's recommendation number 1. To expand the city's urban forest, the consultant recommends the city develop a proactive program to plant trees, street trees, ensuring healthy trees are distributed equitably across the city. This is what your consultant recommended for the assessment, to develop a proactive program to plant street trees, ensuring healthy distribution equitably across the city. The State Forestry Service provides grants to address tree equity with the planting of trees in disadvantaged areas. I provided you an email by Todd Little, who is the coordinator of that program, indicating that several grants they are offering provide funding for tree planting, particularly in disadvantaged areas. The urban forestry assessment determined the citywide tree canopy as of 2021, but we know that has been changing, which was a good first step toward the development of an urban forestry program for the city. But now council needs to follow the general recommendations of the consultant to develop a proactive tree planting program to expand the city's urban forestry by strategically planting trees to reduce temperatures and stormwater discharge into the lagoon. Council is to consider the adoption of the concept plan for an urban forestry program at your 6:30 meeting tonight. This plan provides a multi-year tree planting program along streets and in parks. The plan would expand the city's urban forest, which is what the consultant recommended, while ensuring trees are equitably distributed to benefit all residents for their health and quality of life. Implement the consultant's general recommendations in the assessment to expand the city's urban forest with a proactive tree planting program to benefit all residents. Any questions?
Wow, you're 14 seconds ahead of schedule. You bet.
Oh, man.
No, as always, you present yourself very well. I don't think anybody can disagree with the planting of trees, with the shade, and I've talked a lot about being for a canopy and looking into that. I'll just give a little example. My grandson plays youth league football. We went to Merritt Island last week. It was probably 107 degrees out there. I couldn't find a tree. They had a little palm frond or two, so I got down on my knees. I didn't because I can't. But no, I think it's absolutely needed. The best we can do, we will do, I hope.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
If I gave you a place for 10 trees, and asked you to make the decision where to plant them, where would you tell me to go?
Street trees provide the most benefit for residents because it not only shades the street, it shades the sidewalk, and it shades somebody's yard, and it reduces stormwater runoff. So plant street trees.
Okay.
Between the sidewalk and the curb. Yes, indeed.
So that means sidewalk. That means the
Okay.
median, where the grass is between the sidewalk
Yes,
and the curb.
yes, indeed. And I provided you at the 6:30 meeting, there's a tree palette that was provided by a previous consultant. And that tree palette says this specific type of tree is suitable based upon the width of that right of way. Okay, so you don't want to plant a certain kind of tree where it'll undermine the sidewalk. We don't want to do that because then you end up cutting down the tree. We want to plant the right tree for the right place, not to tear up the roads. And we want street trees, and the concept plan goes into providing trees where there is low canopy and where there is a high poverty rate, because those people deserve the benefit of living among trees and may not have air conditioning and such like. So we want to provide that in the low-income neighborhoods, street trees. Yes.
Thank you.
All righty.
good. Thank
Any
you.
other questions? More on this tonight at 6:30. Thank
All
you.
right, I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there. God willing, I should always say. He was about to get you. He was about to get you.
Ready?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
I'll begin by sharing with you is that there's someone in the hospital right now who's in bad shape. And it's a pastor of Grove Church. He's Brad Russell, and he needs our prayers. They don't know what's going on with him, so he's in serious condition. And if you want to go visit him, you can't unless you're on a special list. So if you wish, you don't have to, but I'm going to ask you to join me in prayer. Lord, we just lift up to you Brad, and we pray for special consideration that you help him through this situation, and him and Shelley and his family. Thank you. Amen. So I sent you an email. It's dated today. I didn't give you the entire email. I just gave you if I gave you the entire email, it would just have the closing that says, please respond and tell the truth and in my name. So in this email, I'll read a little bit to you. It says, it's titled Petition Request for the Titusville Environmental Commission, Council, and others to stop playing Russian roulette. So I'll read the first paragraph. As you're aware, Titusville Environmental Commission has acknowledged the hazardous sewage spill into 9 city streets, residential front yards, etc., photographed, videotaped, reported, witnessed by many September through November 2022, yet repeatedly denied by city and city council. This is clearly a game of Russian roulette. I got something else I want to read to you. Actually, it's the same thing. It says, as you're aware, TEC has acknowledged the hazardous sewage spill into 9 city streets that the city hasn't done. Our city manager denies. We got all kinds of factors. I went and visited your house during the sewage spill, Mr. Diesel, and I visited her house. And I went to his church and put up signs that the sewage spill was happening. And I put signs on the doors, City Hall, at over a dozen churches and so forth. And we got videotapes and photographs and witnesses and so forth. Yet the city has denied, in fact, this is a false report by our city manager. And you guys have said nothing to disagree with him. It seems like you're agreeing with, you shouldn't be done. So I'm asking you to please hire a PE to dispute my findings of your nonsense, negligence, and violation of laws. This is Russian roulette. This is Russian roulette. Just as this is Russian roulette. Spraying people with sewage. That's Russian roulette. This is the sewage spill that I'm talking about right now that happened, that the city gives a false report, says it never happened. This is Russian roulette. I'd like you to do something about it.
Thanks, Stan, appreciate it.
And I'd like an extra 2 minutes.
I see none.
I don't think so.
All right, Miss Klein, or Miss Klein, whoever's coming up. Okay, whoever's coming from that corner. I'm not looking to get into that.
I'm Dr. Breckle.
Breckle.
So I'm not changing my last name.
I don't blame you.
I worked hard for that degree.
Thanks, Mr. Klein. Got me in trouble. I'm kidding. Anyway, good to see you.
Thank you. I looked over the agenda package that you guys get. Do you guys really read that whole thing?
A lot of hours.
Lot of hours. I also want you to know that I went to the TEC meeting this month, and so I heard their discussion about this urban forestry plan. And I want you to know that what you don't see in that packet that you get is the determination, the dedication, the hard work those people put in to trying to figure out how to get this plan so it can work with your budgetary restrictions, so we can have a better, beautiful city. I mean, I don't know if you can possibly appreciate what they do. They're your advisory board, and nobody pays them for doing that. But they spend a lot of time discussing and back and forth and trying to figure out how to help our city. And you don't see that in your agenda package. So I just want you to know that. I have one other little thing. I'm pretty good at math. But I know if you cut down more trees than you plant, your canopy is not going to go up.
Right. Agree. I'm not good at math, and I agree. All right, Mr. Klein.
In 2012, City Council approved spending $40,000 for Arbor Pro Incorporated for an urban forest master plan. This study was completed in 2013. It had a lot of very good information. It talked about where trees should be planted within the city. Some of this plan is still available within City Council. Might be good to look at. October 11, 2022, City Council approved the bid of $17,000 for Planet Geo to develop a tree canopy assessment for Titusville using a grant awarded to the city by the U.S. Forestry Department. A tree canopy assessment measures existing land covered in trees canopy and sets a goal to improve tree canopy. The TEC approved this tree canopy assessment. Since then, the TEC and the tree team have developed the concept plan for an urban forestry program with its vision, canopy goal, and list of specific actions with community involvement. This is option one and staff's analysis being presented tonight. The mayor has stated that he wants to see trees planted now. He doesn't want paralysis by analysis. Option one. The TEC concept plan for an urban forestry program is ready to be implemented. The concept plan is community-driven with support of the tree team and input from many groups. Work can start now seeking grants to fund the program, even if there's no money in the 2024 budget for urban forestry program. Titusville will be budgeting over $100,000 each year to be a tree city. Titusville will also be receiving a lot of money from developers for their tree mitigation payments into the Landscaping Trust Fund. Therefore, Titusville City Council will have ample funds each year to budget for urban forestry program starting in 2025. Because in order to be a tree city, you should be budgeting $2 per person each year in order to qualify. This will be well over $100,000, and it's for planting and maintaining trees for their health, not for road programs. Therefore, I'm asking Titusville City Council to select option one of the TEC concept plan for the urban forestry program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Come on up. Oh, wait a minute, Marley. Wait a minute, she's closer.
Who can run the fastest, right? Okay, I'm doing this. I've got a complaint, but I got a solution.
Oh, that's nice.
My complaint is, and I
Wait,
sent.
do your name and address first.
My name is Diane Law. I live at 390 Indian Oaks Court in Titusville.
Thank you.
The city has a pipe that runs alongside my property. It's water runoff from the neighborhood in the cul-de-sac. The water goes in the pipe and comes down and dumps in my yard. Okay? The city came out when I first got the house, probably a little over 10 years ago. They came out, they dug out a trench, they put down sod, and I said, I'll maintain it as far as grass and cutting and whatever. But after about 5 years, the water running in, it starts to build up. So I started complaining, come out and dig this ditch a little bit deeper so, I don't have flooding. They didn't do it and they didn't do it. Finally, I saw a guy in the neighborhood with a backhoe, and I went up and I said, if I give you a couple $100, will you dig this ditch out? And he did. It was very nice. Another 5 years has gone by. Last hurricane, the water has flooded up over my pool. I have gone to the Public Works. I have letter after letter going to Public Works saying, all you just have to write a work order. We have backhoes. The city owns those. You just come out, you spend 1 hour, you dig the ditch a little bit deeper, and then there's no problem. But they won't do it. So I'm asking you to have them write up a work order and come dig that ditch deeper. They're the ones in the city are collecting stormwater funds, all this water, but it's going into my yard. Do you have any questions? Is there a problem with this?
I don't think we're gonna up here be knowledgeable, but Kevin, can you give me an idea what's going on with that, or what should have gone on with that? Somebody over there?
Yeah, so that is a privately maintained area according to their plat and deeds and restrictions. The homeowners are supposed to maintain that area, kind of like the ponds you see in other subdivisions. This is an older area, so unfortunately, each of the individual homeowners are responsible for that area on their lot. Nowadays, it's more put into a tract where the HOAs maintain it. There are some subdivisions that don't have HOAs. So back in the day, each of the homeowners were individually responsible for maintaining those areas.
Okay, but do we have a pipe that's
Yes.
exasperating
Yes,
that?
yeah.
Yes, they do.
Well,
Yep, just
shouldn't-
like any other of these newer subdivisions, our public streets drain into these privately owned and maintained areas.
And the city does maintain the pipe. We do maintain the function of the pipe on the city roadway. But the pond it feeds to, like all the modern subdivisions, are maintained by the private property owner.
We're an old subdivision. The city's dumping water into my yard, and you're destroying my property. It's not staying.
I haven't seen it, so I can't go in that direction, but I think you guys are aware of what she's saying. But we have a pipe that's been set up to go in that, and how long's that been there, and what's the story on that? It does seem a little odd to me. Maybe it's not.
Subdivision was probably developed in the 1960s. So Sandy's looking up the incorporation.
The deeds were signed in '85.
So the pipe's been there, the drainage system's been there since 1985. The city maintains the pipe. The outfall from the pipe is privately maintained. So yes, we do have to keep our pipe clear to ensure the roads stay clear, as we do with modern subdivisions as well. All the current subdivisions, you'll see the platting. The city maintains pipes on the roads and the outfalls. The ponds are maintained by the HOAs, and as the HOAs fade, they're passed along to the surviving property owners.
And the problem is that the city starts maintaining these, there's hundreds upon hundreds of these, and where does it stop?
No, there's not.
Member Stokel?
Yeah, that was, I guess my question is, I feel like probably when the pipe was first put in, it sounds like there wasn't an issue to begin with. And now, do we have anything in place for when this situation happens due to more water? I think there's more flooding happening now than there was back in the day. And I see what you're saying where it's private property and then we would be in the business of going on to everybody's private property area. I guess my concern would be when it's our pipes and they are performing, but the way they're performing now is impacting residents. I guess that's my concern is where do we draw the line, or are there things that we can do to help alleviate that?
I don't know any other place where the pipe is dumped into somebody's yard. Now, there may be easements on the side of the road, gutters and whatever, but not into somebody's yard. These are things that come off the street into a pipe directed into the yard. Now, that house that I'm in now, I believe was built in '89, so possibly that pipe was there before the house. But somebody okayed the house, and the city did come out. They dug that ditch for the purpose of that water.
When did they do that? A long time ago?
I
or-
would say about 10 years ago. About 10 years ago. And they laid sod, and they told me, because at the time I said, this is a problem. They says, well, every so many years, just, give them a call and they'll come out and just dig that ditch because it brings debris in. I mean, that's the natural flow.
I
It just
understand
needs to be-
that we have nature things, we have hurricanes, we have southeast winds sometimes off the river.
Absolutely.
But this one, I'd like to have you guys come back and address me or the council or something. I'd like to have it looked into. I understand you might say there's 100 of those, but let's just pretend that there are. She's saying that it was 10 years ago, they remedied it. Maybe if we dealt with something every 10 years. I'm not trying to put, I don't understand it enough, and I may ask you guys to take me to go see it. But I just don't know that it hits me the right way to have a city pipe unloading into someone's yard. I'm not seeing it, so I'm not saying that what it looks like, but I'm saying I'd like to have some sort of,
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to discuss it further or have some
Right.
kind of understanding of what's happening there.
Because they have built up several other homes in that cul-de-sac, and they're all running into the street, into the pipe, into my yard. So you're correct. As time goes on, more and more water accumulates, and it ends up in my yard.
And it seems as though it's not like there has to be a maintenance thing to this every week or every month or every
No,
year. It
I'm
was
talking
like a
about come
10-year
out every
deal.
5 years with a backhoe and take a half hour to, And right now, though, the water's already started to accumulate. It'll stay in that ditch until winter, till the dry season. And that's when the optimal time to get that done. But I've been fighting this for quite a while now, and
Either one of you or both, I'd like to know more about that. I don't know how, I don't want to speak for council, but I'd like to know more about it. Maybe you can show me what we've got going on there.
Member Robinson, I heard you ask for pictures. Attached in your agenda item under the 9A item there, she was one of the written objections, and she did attach some pictures in there, so you can see.
Member Nelson?
And I would agree, because I would think that because we are pushing water onto her property, that's causing the ditch to become more and more shallow,
right, correct.
just as a natural
And it's
process.
it's not a big issue. The solution is every 5 years, come out with a backhoe, take a half hour, dig it deeper, we're done.
I will look for input back and
Thank
we'll
you. I
get with,
appreciate
yes,
that.
sir.
Yeah, just one thing, that the city didn't construct the subdivision. So a developer constructed a subdivision, installed the drainage system in which the city inherits and maintains. Likewise, the property owners inherit and maintain the drainage easements that went with it. So this wasn't constructed by the city to create. It was constructed by a developer, turned over to the city through a final plat process that platted drainage easements that hold this water. So just in the same generalization that current subdivisions are developed in the same manner, drainage tracts, because past 1989, they're required to have stormwater permitting. At this point, they did not have stormwater permitting. They would have had a pond tract that the HOAs take in now. You see it on all the final plats that come through today. Now, you'll see all developments have a tract set aside for stormwater. This is the same occurrence, where the tract was placed in instead of a singular tract of a pond, it's spread out through all the tracts of a subdivision. But just want to make sure the city didn't install the drainage network in this location. This was
Okay.
a developed
Let's solve the
item.
problem, just
Yeah,
solve the
and
problem.
thank you. So I did find the pictures. They're on page 1,296 of our packet. But it looks to me like there might have been an issue with the development initially. Either that ditch needed to be dug deeper or the house needed to be up further, because I see it when it's dry and I see it is very flooded. Yeah, that's
We
a
got
tough one.
hurricanes coming, and I'm worried.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, I'll get with you or you get with me.
When can I get back with you?
I'd like to contact her because obviously I don't know day to day exactly, but in the next couple days, I'd like to get with you. So I can have Miss Virginia contact her. If we can get your contact information handed over there to Kevin, please, then I'll have somebody call you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Milton Farrow, 4430 Elliott Avenue, Titusville. I agree, by the way, I agree with these folks. You can't plant trees if you're planting concrete, so maybe we have to stop the concrete and start planting trees. They're correct. We were supposed to talk about impact fees. What I'd like to understand, and I couldn't wrap my hand around it. Impact fees are supposed to be directed towards the developers who are coming in, who are benefiting by mature cities' improvements, investments, and years of planning and putting culverts and service. How did we handle this increase? I understand we have inflation, and we had accordingly to place some increases because we had to play catch up. We missed some years, if I understood what was being said here tonight. how did we program a preloaded fee with the developers to offset this? Because we shouldn't be giving developers a free ride on our backs. Okay, this city, and I heard it from some of you gentlemen up here, is aging. We have people in trouble. I have about 40 people on my block. Probably about 20 of them were sick with COVID. Some of them still haven't recovered. They took tremendous losses as a result of it. We've got a topsy-turvy economy because the federal government has gone wayward. I can understand that. But I don't understand how we preloaded the developers' fees to make up the differences that we all have paid for 30 and 40 years. If somebody can explain that to me.
I will say I'm very aware that there are impact fees, and on the flip side, we sometimes have the developers say, well, that's pretty heavy, so they're, that's too much. But that being said, who will explain the impact fee thing over there? Kevin, is that you as well? Well, there's not a lot of y'all over there, so I can only pick on one or two of y'all.
The city collects a variety of impact fees. Transportation, for instance, actually, we piggyback the county's impact fee structure, which was developed off of the basis of capacity improvement needs in a future projection.
Would you take your hand away from your mouth so I can hear you?
Sorry. So we have to develop an impact fee, you have to project a future expense, whether it be a sewer plant, a road widening, a police station, a police car, fire truck, and then divide that by forthcoming development. So developers pay a fair share of the impact they create, whether it be widening a road, treating the water, treating the sewer, or buying a fire truck. They pay a proportionate fair share of that improvement. So in the case, I'll use the example of a road widening. When we widen Park Avenue from 2 lanes to 3, we use developer paid impact fees to complete that project, because the impact of new growth was what the capacity increase was created by. Likewise, we charge an impact fee of water and sewer through a connection fee for plant capacity developed already. So in those cases, you're paying for plants constructed already, and the developers are paying a share of that cost of that plant.
Give me some numbers. Those are just broad statements. Give me some numbers so I understand what you're talking about.
For every house in the city right now, you pay $441 to police impact fees, $333 roughly to fire, $115 to public works. I don't have the impact fee up for transportation in front of me, but I think the individual house is around $2,000 for impact fee to the transportation network. Water and sewer, I believe, around $1,200 each. So for every commercial development, they pay 33 cents for the police impact fee, 9 cents for fire, 1 cent for City Hall, and 3 cents to Public Works. Likewise, they have a Brevard County impact fee that they pay for transportation.
One moment. Do you feel that that's sufficiently loaded to make up for 35 years?
Here's what we don't want to get into. What he's not the guy who's going to tell you how he feels or that. I think that's pretty complicated.
I can see we're not going to get an answer.
Well, you got quite an answer, quite honestly. Impact fees are paid. Are they adequate? I don't know. I mean, we'll go with that. So I appreciate your concern. Next up. Right after this, we're all going to Dixie Crossroads. All right. Yeah, probably.
Laura Lee Thompson, 3550 Irwin Avenue, MEMS. And I'm the chair of your Titusville Environmental Commission. So staff did a pretty good job of framing our motion that was made about the urban canopy concept plan. And it says that the TEC recommended approval of the concept plan as opposed in option 1 for the urban forestry program with suggested projects and activities with a focus to allow its development as prioritized with the resources that the city has available so that the plan will be in place and how we move forward can be determined as we move along. In addition, the TEC recommended that the city seek grant funds to implement the urban forestry concept plan. But what got left out was my comment as the chair, when we were getting ready to go vote. So I said, we have a motion, and this is in the transcript if you want to go back and listen to it. We have a motion by Member Perez and a second by Member Fliss to accept the concept plan as it is, take into account that it doesn't have to be done all in the first year. It can be done over time. But recognizing that it can be done over time, we wanted to focus on item 2C, and that's what we voted on. So item 2C was the suggestion that we pick the area close to downtown Titusville that contains, I think, 5 city parks, and that we focus on street tree planting and planting trees in the city parks that are close to the downtown Titusville area. And I wanted to point that out. And I also wanted to point out too, that, you know, the $2 per capita, the $102,000 is supposed to be spent on planting and maintaining trees, not maintaining the city's right-of-ways, which is what most of that money has been spent on over the last many years. So in 2013, the city planted 36 trees. In 2014, 15, and 2016, trees planted 0. 2017, 17 trees. 2018, 81 trees. 2019, 7 trees. 2020, we planted 4 trees. 2021 was a pretty good year. We planted 28. I think a lot of that was in response to the sewer spill. We planted some trees at Sandpoint Park to help mitigate for the sewer spill. And last year we planted 8 trees. So that's not really using the $102,000 for planting and care of trees the way it is supposed to be used in order for us to be, you know, the Tree City USA. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura Lee. Kind of presents it in a way that you can visualize exactly where we're at. I appreciate that. Next up, back on Broadway.
I'm saving that for later,
No,
please.
we missed you, is what I'm saying.
I know. I have something for you for later at the 6:30 meeting.
Okey-doke.
But I wanted to speak
Don't
about
forget your
Agenda
name.
4D, Schifolo, the historic Norwood House on Tropic Street. When one studies the TEC recommendations in the concept plan presented as option 1, one finds solutions offered for many of the negatives found in the staff analysis. Many of the other obstacles raised can be solved with further consultation with the TEC members and the Tree Team Ad Hoc Committee of citizens, botanists, landscape architects, rocket scientists. Talk about community and expert involvement. The Land Development Regulation Section 31-121 stipulates TEC as tree board is responsible for developing and administering a plan for care, preservation, pruning, planting of trees and shrubs in parks, along streets, and in all other public areas. Tree City USA requires a community forestry program. We've been a Tree City for 20 years without a program. The concept plan TEC is presenting is the answer to that land development regulation. I urge you later today to consider option 1 as the only viable option. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up. You're all saving it. All right. Let's look for 22. And I know I'll say that and you guys will be wandering around. So, okay, yeah. What is it, 7:40? 7:40. We will reconvene. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.